I would have a couple pieces of advice. One is these procedural wrangles that they're having are not doing anyone any good, and in fact, I think it's hurting the new leadership politically. They ought to be fighting over substance. There's plenty to fight over with substance, and not fighting over trying to prevent the Republican commissioners from reading documents and getting documents. They ought to try to return to more, regular order in how the commission works. The second point is in any one of these jobs, and I've had 6 jobs in the federal government, you need to hire complementary parts. There are lots of administrative law experience, lots of Democrats in the DC bar who I think could help these people in what they want to do in a way that will make it easier for everyone to deal with the FTC. I suspect there's some concern about hiring experienced lawyers who work for companies, but I don't, there's just nothing wrong with that. And that's that kind of experience you need, especially when you're young. I was the same age that Lena Khan is when I was director of the Bureau of Consumer Protection, and one of the things I did was hire some very experienced people. We wanted to bring fraud cases. I couldn't have brought a fraud case of my own if you put a gun to my head. And I hired some very good people. It turned out, because I was a very young male, it was in some ways easier to hire, more experienced women. They were more willing to work for a young male. But I had tremendous people of both genders. I probably just said something politically incorrect in the modern age, but in any event, hiring complementary parts would be my second piece of advice.
I think, completely agree with everything that Tim said. I think it's, Neil, you mentioned the FTC at 100 report, and understanding and embracing kind of the unique role and structure of the FTC, I think is important. It's a small agency. Even if it gets some of this plus up, it's going to continue to be a small agency. But it can do really important things when it embraces its unique capabilities. So the case-by-case enforcement, there was that, I did a big study about the FTC's administrative litigation, and Neil, you were there, and you helped me with that. But one of the things it really showed was how the FTC's administrative litigation, right, which doesn't always, get the glory that it deserves, has had a big impact on antitrust law and a big impact on Supreme Court victories for more antitrust enforcement, right? So Phoebe Putney, North Carolina Dental, Indiana Federation of Dentists, kind of the list goes on. And so one of the things, so you mentioned the AMG case, and Justice Breyer wrote that case. And it cited a speech I had given a number of years ago called Dollars, Doctrine, and Damage Control, How the FTC's Pursuit of Disgorgement Affects its Antitrust Mission. And what that speech was about is how the FTC going into federal court in pursuit of money actually undermined its ability to improve antitrust law, improve the enforcement of antitrust law. So I would encourage the agency to kind of go back to its roots, to try to, rather than through rulemaking, and especially UMC rulemaking, which then is only limited to the FTC, that it actually go back to bringing well-rounded, economically reasonable antitrust cases through its administrative litigation and getting that kind of taken up into the antitrust case law. And so one thing that I will give Tim, among the many things that Tim deserves enormous credit for, is something very, very key that he did in light of real difficulty in antitrust enforcement in hospital merger area, where the FTC and DOJ, I think, lost 8 hospital merger challenges in a row. And courts were just not believing, right, the agency's prediction of anti-competitive outcomes. So Tim did some wonderful work. I think it was retrospective, a study and it showed that these bad effects were happening. And through administrative litigation, kind of aired that out. And then the agencies, both of them, have had wonderful success rate in hospital merger challenges. So I think that's a really important thing, because so often it's painted as, well, you don't want to do antitrust enforcement. You don't, you're not interested in that if you don't embrace all these, real sea change at the FTC. And I don't think that's right. So one of the things that I would say is, understand the FTC's unique capabilities and embrace it and move forward. Now it's incremental, right? And that's the thing I think people get impatient with. But when I think about, for example, I supported the McWane case, an important administrative law case about exclusive dealing. And we won that case in the 11th Circuit when I was at the FTC. And I think that laid down some really key case law, but it wasn't overnight. So that would be my, one of my recommendations is, to kind of move with economic grounding and embracing those FTC strengths, because in the long term, they have really paid off for good antitrust enforcement in the US, and not a one-way ratchet to say no antitrust enforcement.